Apple Silicon is Apple's new ARM-based processors that are made by Apple for Apple devices. The processors are currently used in the iPhones and iPads, and soon, all Mac devices will use them, and Apple will ditch Intel for good. PCs, on the other hand, use the x86 platform, which has been used for a long time, and Intel has recently seen lots of competition from AMD's faster, smaller, more efficient, and less expensive processors that still use x86. The stark contrast between the two platforms of ARM and x86 have led me to make this video going over the effect that Apple Silicon will most likely have on PCs over the following years. This is a deep dive episode coming up next on Tech Device News. I'll start off with some background information about what's so special with Apple Silicon processors for those unaware. Apple Silicon is a highly power-efficient yet powerful SoC designed for iPhones and iPads, but these are now out on MacBooks. An SoC is a system on a chip, meaning that the processors have everything they need to run the device built onto one chip. Things included on that SoC include all the processing cores and also all the high-speed DRAM. Another thing special about these processors is their size at 5 nanometers compared to current Intel chips at 14 nanometers. Now you know what Apple Silicon is, so I'll go over some of Intel's problems with Apple, and explain why Apple is ditching them in the first place. The first reason being what I recently talked about with the processor size. Smaller transistors are more power efficient and can perform more calculations before reaching a thermal limit and throttling performance. Current Intel chips are at 14 nanometers, and it's been that way since 5th gen processors back in January of 2015, and we're nearing 2021. And remember what I just said about how smaller transistors can run faster before reaching a thermal limit? That is extremely important in laptop designs that typically have trouble staying cool. For the past few years, Apple has had trouble keeping the processors fast within their thin and light chassis. This can partially be attributed to some of Apple's thin and light design first over function, but nonetheless, Intel processors still produce too much heat, and almost all MacBooks currently sold reach their thermal limits of 100 degrees Celsius under load. This ends up reducing the lifespan and performance of the CPUs when the thermal limit is reached. Apple Silicon processors are using much smaller processes at 5 nanometers, and this smaller size will help out tremendously when it comes to thermals and also overall performance, while also being more efficient in the whole process. The next issue with Intel that led to Apple leaving them is how slow year-over-year performance updates are. The performance year-over-year with Intel chips is not as good as Apple is able to achieve with their processors, and it usually takes a full year before Apple is able to sell the new chips, leaving Apple to sell older hardware when new ones come out. Silicon will be on Apple's schedule, and there's no need for them to wait on Intel's small improvements year over year. The last and probably the biggest reason why Apple is switching away from Intel chips is because of the cost. The 10th generation Intel Core i5-1035G7 in the $1,800 MacBook Pro costs $320 compared to the cost of Apple's A13 processor on the iPhone 11 Pro being only $64. I'm sure Apple Silicon processors will cost a little more than the $64 to make, but it's estimated that it won't cost more than $100 to produce. Apple saving a few $100s on the processors make a huge difference as they have more money to spend on better parts without increasing the consumer price, or they can keep all the other parts the same and lower the price for the consumers, just like we've seen in the Mac Mini. Now that you're aware of all the reasons why Apple wants to ditch Intel, let's talk about why this will change processors going forward. Well, in some places at least. I see the future for SoCs running on simpler ARM architecture because of the cost benefits, along with the performance and efficiency improvements on laptop devices. However, in the near future, I don't expect to see this on many Windows laptops, as there will need to be a transition period, just like Apple is in the process of. Desktop PCs is the one area where I don't see ARM-based SoCs appearing at all or for a very long time. This is due to the fact that everything is all on one chip, and there wouldn't be something like a separate graphics card and DRAM slots to plug those into. With desktop PCs meant to be so modular and how they usually don't have big thermal or chassis constraints, I just don't see anything happening to that sector for a while. To answer the question, will Apple Silicon change processors forever? My prediction is yes, once people see the benefits of Apple Silicon on laptops and how far better they are than using the x86 platform. However, for desktops, I'm not sure what the answer would be. So, to sum everything up I've covered in this deep dive episode, it comes down to this. Intel is on its way out with Apple, and they're moving away to their own processors. We also went over all the problems with current Intel chips, and how their old process is leading to poor efficiency and performance for the cost. And we also now know how Apple Silicon will change that for the better. The last thing we covered were my own opinions surrounding the question of Apple Silicon changing processors forever going forward. This was a fun video for me to make as I went out and researched everything around Apple Silicon for you guys. And if you could hit that like button, that'd be great, as these videos do take me a while to make. If you would like to see more tech topics covered on deep dive episodes, click the subscribe button and the notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Tech Device News.